Hello, everyone, and welcome to theCUBE from the New York Stock Exchange office in San Francisco. We're covering Dreamforce 2024. We are talking to customers, Salesforce folks, as well as some partners in the ecosystem. So my name is Christophe Bertrand. I'm a principal analyst at theCUBE, and I'd like to welcome Matt Gorniak, who is the CEO of ThreeKit. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to meet.
Perfect. So Matt, tell us about yourself and tell us about ThreeKit.
Yeah. So ThreeKit's visual commerce platform, and we started the company about 6.5 years ago. Prior to that, we started and built two vendors that were sales tools, if you will. And we had this thought, what's missing is the whole customer experience, the whole product experience. That was sort of the thesis, the genesis, that one day in the future, what's going to be really important is digitally to be able to, essentially when you buy products, to be inspired, to be able to explore. It's all going to happen online. So that was kind of the thesis behind it. It's coming true, which is good. And that's kind of sort of the story behind ThreeKit. I'm the CEO, and that's what we do.
So let's talk about your customer base, 6.5 years. How many customers do you have? Where are they? Who are they? I've heard a couple of big names.
Yeah, 150 customers. They're leading global brands. And what's fascinating is it started pretty much in luxury. Luxury is a really fascinating segment. I would encourage anyone who really hasn't looked into it. It's amazingly digital forward. I'll leave it at that. So have fun exploring that. And there it's about always taking how do you capture the essence, the spirit of a brand? These are big words, but they're very real. What does that mean? How do you bring product experiences to the customer? Then we add buzzwords here called omnichannel, but it's very real to a buyer. Like you're walking down Champs-Élysées, which maybe in Paris you did. How do you, so this would be the traditional experience. And then how do you do this digitally is the setup. But you walk down the storefront. How do you see something that inspires you? How do you engage in the store? How do you explore? How do you get sort of really interested? And then obviously, how do you then really put something together and then buy a product, but also much more than that. You buy confidence. You buy feelings, right? And amazing products. Having said that, you do that digitally. And now what we see is, so back to your question, it started with luxury, and now 2/3 of our business are manufacturers. You think of building materials, you think of sinks and faucets, you think of high-end cabinets, technology, by the way, gaming systems. How do you allow the customer digitally to have that same feeling, right? Because traditionally, I think brands and manufacturers outside of luxury looked at products of something you make, and you kind of offer it. And that's kind of, that time has changed, right? Like I offer you stuff, that was cool 20 years ago digitally. Now it's about engage me.
It makes perfect sense, and I think we're seeing some similar trends actually in business to business, not just in B2C or B2B2C. So it's quite a distance between a designer dress and and a faucet. But let's talk about some of the mechanics behind this, because I see what you're doing. You're recreating the physical experience in digital. But in order to do that, there's a whole supply chain that happens. How do you engage in the context of Dreamforce with Salesforce? Are there specific integrations, APIs that we should know about? And how does that all work for the manufacturer, for the client? What do they get from you in order to be able to achieve what you've just described?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think what's really exciting is two things at Dreamforce this year. I mean, main things. One is Agentforce, which I think is going to be very interesting to power, really give the customer what they want, powered by all this data that most companies already have. So that's number one. Number two is Revenue Cloud Accelerate, or Advanced, I should say. So part of our specific integration is Salesforce is decomposing some of their products, meaning they're making that data easier available, like configuration, pricing data, quoting. And that sounds kind of, that's tech stuff, but it's powerful because when you talk about a customer experience, customer journey, let's talk again about digitally, right? You can now take that data from Salesforce and use it across the journey without having to recreate the wheel. So let me give you an example. Doors, windows, just let's go there, right? Cabinets, closets. I'm going to something everyone can understand. online, you use some configuration data, some pricing data. But where with ThreeKit comes, you can experience the product, right? You can really feel like you're buying it, get really into it. But then it goes maybe from that experience to a quoting scenario whereby, let's say a cabinet, you're not really into it, but the way to buy it is at a dealership. So why would you have to recreate the application all over again at the dealership? Why not reuse, that's the composability and the headlessness that both of our systems bring to the table, maybe most of what's online, but you have to add or can add additional data that's very useful for the sales rep or maybe not available to the customer, like discounts or whatnot. And you can basically create infinite amount of buying journeys. And by the way, as a consumer, that's what we want. We want a certain buying journey online, at the store, the dealership engages with us. Because what happens is, as a buyer, I'm kind of like, I want the brand to kind of give me and like follow my journey. So where this becomes interesting again is from a data model side, it allows us to reuse that data across the journey. So
yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it's, I guess, also you talked about agentic AI here, but AI is going to be a big deal. Is a big deal already, and I'm very sure it's going to be part of your the conversation here. So let's double click a little bit on the Salesforce components here.
Yep.
So who is your buyer? Is it the Salesforce admin? Is it the actual marketing lead for the company in question? Is it the chief revenue officer? Who's your buyer? And walk me through the integration piece, because I think that's very interesting here to really convert data from Salesforce into an experience and back, which is really the thing. It's a two-way street here.
Absolutely. And I'd say it's been really fascinating because from a ThreeKit perspective, the buyer has been, yes, sometimes the CRO, CMO, or who runs digital, but a lot of times now it's been executives. Because what we found is that for the very first time, we're actually speaking about the products that pay the bills, which is their products. So it's about, engaging the customers with their products just in the right way. So these systems, like ThreeKit, is not just a system; it's literally helping you help. And actually, the way to phrase it is, we actually are very much buyer-centric. It's a system that people buy to sell more. Okay. We're not confused about that. But it's about the buyer wanting to buy. We fundamentally started the company believing 6 years ago that selling is over. It's all about buying. And so when you have that mindset, how you architect it, how you have the experiences, that is really pivotal, if that makes sense. Because the buyer kind of doesn't want to get sold anymore. So that's kind of ThreeKit. So what I'm saying is now, you asked who's buying it, is executives right now. We can discuss the economy. I'm not an economy expert. But things may be slowing down a bit. And now is the question, what do we do now? What do we do differently? And the next frontier, what we see is the product itself, the experience. And then back to the integration, didn't lose that, is basically the ability to pull that data out of Salesforce across that journey without having to reduplicate it. That's really powerful.
So that must convert into additional sales. Obviously, what I like very much is your buyer-centric. So that makes perfect sense. So you're sort of backing into the sort of Salesforce data by first starting with the buyer, which is very interesting. I think you're right. We maybe have, or tended to be, thinking the other way around. How do I sell? Well, this is really how do I buy? So I get that part. Now let's go back to the back and forth with the data. Clearly, you're enriching the existing data set when somebody starts interacting. I mean, you mentioned configuring a cabinet, or I can think of a car. Everybody's bought a car and change the colors and add this and add that, right? Same general idea. So how would you say, what type of improvements have you heard your customers report? Maybe you can't share exact numbers, but I would love to get some actual examples.
Yeah, and I think the first one is you talk about the integration or just the outcome.
The outcome, but, if you could put this in the context of the integration.
Of course.
I think it's going to be this back and forth.
Integration is all assumed, and then we should talk about Agentforce and AI as well.
Absolutely.
Because I do believe we're seeing huge. We're applying it. We're very much into applying that. But let me tell you this. So let's talk about B2B or products that are we focus on high value, high complex, not luxury. What I'm saying, but again, things like in this room, chairs and table. This is not a T-shirt you're buying. Okay, multiple products. There's a consideration of configuration, multiple products together. There's style, there's materials, all that. All right. So let's start with lead generation. That sounds like a very basic word. How do you generate a lead when you have a complex product? So again, think of manufacturing online. There's a lot of studies, including ours, which is essentially this. Most manufacturers put some pictures up, and the resistance to click the contact sales button is tremendous. We've done studies ourselves where the B2B buyer, I'm thinking what I just told you, could be forklifts, could be conference room equipment, okay? This is who we cover, customers of ours. They will go through incredible amounts of pain to find it on themselves online before they contact the seller. So what you have to do is you have to do a visual configuration. You have to do a visual solutioning, visual experience online to give you a sense of, I have something that will solve your problem, and now talk to my seller. Naturally, you could buy it online as well, so we do this a lot, but let's say you don't because of business reasons. That's the new way. So then what happens is, now that you are a high quality lead, the next step is, well, someone has to help you transact it. Maybe it's a store, maybe it's a dealership. And so the question back to the integration is, how do you carry that experience to the next channel? Today, these are different applications. It's, as a buyer, like, what happened? I had this wonderful experience here. Now I go to this partner or your sales team, and it feels very different, very jarring. So by the way, you get higher quality leads. People tend to buy more because they want to buy more. They're here to solve a problem. So the average transaction goes up, and people buy faster because, in essence, you're taking the risk out. There's these hurdles across the buying process. Some things could be very, very simple that just stop it in the process. And by the way, that's not just online, that's also the sales team. By the way, let me talk about sales teams for a second. A lot of sales teams right now, they are struggling with information. They're just as confused as the buyer, many products. So their ability to explain and show, kind of like almost let it by itself. That's kind of the arc. But those are three: higher quality leads, higher average basket of goods, and faster transactions.
Yeah, and that's a big deal because essentially you've hit fundamentally what drives a business, which is margin and sales. So top line and bottom line. So clearly the next combination of technologies will be agents and
Before we
AI
go there,
agents.
but just to make it very simple, is let's say this room, you want a conference room equipment, and let's say it's really important for our interview. What you want, you have a budget. I want to see this room. I want to see a table. Show me the equipment. I experience it. I want to buy it right now. It's honestly that simple. It's hard to do. Does that make sense? Versus like looking at some pictures of the brand and talking to a sales rep. You know what you want already. Anyway, sorry, back to the agents.
Well, I would say, is it hard to do? I don't know if it's hard to do, but it's hard to translate into something that carries through the whole life cycle. I think that's really the trick here. That's really the trick. Because the visual render is, I think we've had for many years, but you're right. Can I click it, and then as a distributor, do I get this information, or do I have to put you through the whole configuration again, at which point I'll probably lose you as a potential client.
Voila.
So that makes perfect sense to me. But I want to go back to AI. Let's talk about AI. I know it's hot topic, it's a buzzword. Literally, I think Mark Benioff said we should have called this edition Agentforce. What are you doing with the agents? What's your take on Agentforce? How are you going to use the agents, and what are you already doing today?
Yeah, I think it's very powerful. I mean, we have started building our AI product, Visual Discovery, and Visual Commerce AI, starting last year already. For us, it was very clear that you as a consumer, as a buyer, I'm using both, so direct consumer or buyer of B2B, you want the best sales rep helping you out across the whole journey. And that sounds kind of like very hokey, but the reality is online, in store, you want ideally that, you have 1,000 reps. There's a small portion who are just amazing. They know everything. They know, but now with visual commerce, you have the whole product at your disposal. They can ask you questions and kind of get you what makes sense for you, the budget and availability. And that's what AI is, the promise that we're delivering today. So when you're online and you're just like, hey, I'm trying to figure out for this conference room, what should I think about? It's not about lots of questions, about very quickly getting you to something that makes sense, including in the store. So, and why AI is so powerful is that the training is and the setup is so much easier than if you had to declare all that, you know, in the context it knows. What's really incredible for us with Agentforce is that we can tap into Salesforce and leverage that agent that has a much broader context of the customer, all these interactions,
right,
much broader, which makes that experience even richer, right? So we envision have built our product that it basically engages with that agent. It becomes like a specialized product visual commerce agent.
It makes perfect sense. And I like the broader context because clearly there's another aspect, which is I don't want to be a customer. I don't want you as a customer just this one time. I want to create a relationship with you. If you remember what I bought before, maybe we can start from there, etc. So there's a whole idea behind this, and that probably that's another metric. The lifetime value of a customer probably increases with this because you keep them for longer and they buy more. This is great technology. I know we didn't go too much into the details technically. There will be plenty of time at Dreamforce to do that. Thank you so much for stopping by. It was great talking to you and discovering this great integration. And to our viewers, thank you very much for joining us. We're covering Dreamforce 2024. My name is Christophe Bertrand. I'm a principal analyst here at the Cube Research, and we'll talk to you on the next one.